Hey everyone, welcome back to the Swiftly Sung Stories podcast. I'm Jen, I am your Swifty English teacher, and today we are tackling track 1 of my track-by-track analysis of the life of a showgirl. We're diving straight into the Fate of Ophelia. If you missed my last episode where I analyzed Taylor's prologue poem from the album, you might want to go back and check that out because it lays a lot of groundwork for understanding the themes that Taylor's really getting at in these lyrics. Just to quickly let you know, and then we're getting right into the meat of the episode. All of this content is available on my website. If you want the text version with annotated lyrics, it is all there, linked in the show notes. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can also find me wherever you get your podcasts and vice versa. Okay, let's roll straight into the Fate of Ophelia, line by line. Welcome to Swiftly Sung Stories, where we unpack the Taylor Swift universe one era, album, and lyric at a time. Think of it like English class, but it's all Taylor Swift and none of the boring stuff. I'm Jen, your Swifty English teacher, and class is in session, so come on in and meet me in the margins. The first thing we have to do is talk about the Hamlet of it all. So the central metaphor is right there. It's in the title, The Fate of Ophelia, and Ophelia is, of course, one of the tragic characters in Hamlet. So here's just a super quick condensed cliff notes about what you need to know about Ophelia in Hamlet. The tragedy of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, is one of William Shakespeare's most well-known plays. Hamlet is obviously a prince, and his father, the king, dies, and there's this shady scramble for the throne. Then a ghost appears to Hamlet and says that the king was murdered. Hamlet devises this plot to pretend that he is insane in order to find out what really happened to his father. Ophelia, who is also in this court of, high status families, is kind of in love with Hamlet, and he seems to be courting her kind of before all this goes down. But then Hamlet goes off his rocker and just starts messing with her mind. And he decides that this insanity will somehow get to the truth. Ophelia is obviously alarmed and tries to tell everyone that Hamlet is totally gone insane, but everyone in the court is just like, oh, he's just crazy in love with you. They tell her she's being dramatic and she's overreacting. It's basically the Elizabethan version of he just picks on you because he likes you. Then the families start exploiting Hamlet and Ophelia's relationship to find out what Hamlet knows about his father's death and what his revenge plot is going to be. And so Ophelia is really just a pawn in this game. She's being manipulated by everyone. She approaches Hamlet about all of this, and he essentially tells her that she's crazy for ever believing that he would love her. Then Hamlet kills Ophelia's father, by accident, but still. Then Ophelia goes mad for real, not pretending. She wanders around singing and handing out symbolic flowers, and then drowns under a weeping willow tree. Now, in the text, it's unclear if she intentionally offed herself or if it was an accidental drowning, but the moral of the story is Ophelia died after being manipulated by a bunch of men. It doesn't really matter how it ends for Hamlet for our purposes. That's it. The end. That's Hamlet. That's the central metaphor. The fate of Ophelia is to lose her mind after a bunch of gaslighting. All right. Let's get into the lyrics. Quick disclaimer, I only discuss Taylor's personal life in my lyrical analysis when it's essential to understanding the text or when it really helps us put these lyrics into context. But overall, I'm not here to discover what Taylor Swift did. I'm trying to discover what the art does and what the writing does. Also, I'm dissecting Taylor's lyrics through my lens and my opinion, and that doesn't have to be your lens and your opinion. All art is subjective, and it means different things to different people. So in this analysis, I'm not going to say it's fact or correct. I'm just here to point out different interpretations so you can take what you like and leave the rest. I'm not going to say this is my opinion before every sentence because this is just my blanket. This is all my opinion. All right, let's go. Okay, start of the first verse. I heard you calling on the megaphone. She's beginning the first track of the album and starting her new era. We're in the present tense and we're looking back at the past, and she's setting up backstory for our narrator character. Yes, this is probably a metaphor for Travis Kelce's podcast, New Heights. That could be the megaphone that gets her attention. And we've also seen a lot of megaphone imagery in this album promotion and even in the merch. But the point is that this isn't a quiet call or a text. It is a shout, as if from the universe, or maybe a siren song. And that siren imagery is also reflected in the music video, in the ship scene. You want to see me all alone. So she hears the subject beckon from this megaphone. He wants to see the girl behind the show. He wants to see it without all the pomp and circumstance and costume. While most are there for the showgirl, he's there for the human being, stripped down and bare bones. And legend has it you are quite the pyro, she says of his reputation. You light the match just to watch it blow. He has a habit of lighting fires for the hell of it, which could have a few different metaphorical meanings. One, he's a ladies' man. He flirts and turns on the charm just because he can, igniting sparks of chemistry willy-nilly. The second interpretation is that he's a bad boy and tends to burn down his relationships with abandon. But as we learned in the prologue poems, he's reckless but never with your heart. Assuming this is talking about the same relationship, that interpretation is unlikely. But the final and the most likely interpretation is that his reputation precedes him in bed. And we'll learn that in the later track, Wood, he lives up to his name in that department. And if you'd never come for me, she says, this is in the first pre-chorus, I might have drowned in the melancholy. Here's where Hamlet comes into play. She's saying that if this new person hadn't called out for her, come to get her, she may have drowned in the melancholy like Ophelia did. Now, this isn't a literal drowning. Of course, it's metaphorical. But Ophelia died after essentially being gaslit by everyone in her life. Hamlet says he never loved her, and she was crazy to think he did. That's what she's comparing previous relationships to. It's the manipulation of Ophelia. I swore my loyalty to me, myself, and I. And this is where her priorities lay before he arrived. Right before you lit my sky up. So this once again is paralleling Ophelia's world where she doesn't know who she can trust. In Ophelia's case, she's been so manipulated that she doesn't even know if she can trust herself. And she loses her mind in grief and confusion. But Taylor stands on sturdier ground. And after her last try at love, she decides she's just better off on her own rather than to submit herself to more heartbreak. She's been burned so many times that she's better off alone. But then the pyro enters stage left and lit my sky up. We'll see another reference to cheerful skies in Opalite. Here's the chorus. All that time, I sat alone in my tower. Now, the choice of tower is a loaded word in Taylor's universe. She has a long-running fairy tale metaphor that she uses in several songs, stretching throughout her discography. And this is the metaphor. It's her career as her kingdom. This started in Long Live, which is a song about her performing on stage with her band. And in that song, she says, we were the kings and queens, and how the kingdom lights shine just for me and you. I had the time of my life fighting dragons with you. Later on in Call It What You Want, she shares a similar metaphor. My castle crumbled overnight. They took the crown, but it's all right. There's the entirety of the Bejeweled music video where the castle and the crown could represent her position in the industry. And there's so many more. But it's just important to note that my tower isn't an unusual metaphor in the TS universe. And she even talks about it in the prologue for this album. But, and I think this is where some of the controversy is coming in, hasn't Taylor's entire lesson about the fairy tale ending, as she's written about several times, think about White Horse, where there is no Prince Charming, there is no one coming. Isn't her entire thing that she'll have to rescue herself? Yeah. So I want to dig into this a little bit because it feels off brand, right? Like, I think this is where a lot of the initial controversy is stemming from, because this was the single. It feels like she's saying she is the princess being rescued by a prince. So to look at this, I think it helps to look at other songs where she's discussed similar themes. And she also referenced Shakespeare and being rescued in Love Story. In that track from Fearless, she rewrites the fates of Romeo and Juliet into a happily ever after. But her version of Juliet in Love Story is more helpless and much more in need of rescue. She says, Romeo saved me. I've been feeling so alone. I keep waiting, but you never come. In the Fate of Ophelia, the damsel isn't exactly in distress. She's pledged to be okay on her own. I swore my loyalty to me, myself, and I. So if Love Story says, I can't live without you, I think the Fate of Ophelia says, I can live without you, but I don't want to. There's two ways to look at this. There's with context and without context. If we look strictly at the lyrics, yes, she is being rescued by a prince. But if we take into consideration what she's most likely singing about, Travis Kelce, who is now her fiance, then we also have to take into consideration if this is a real rescue scenario. And it's not. She could literally buy and sell him 10 times over. She could date or marry pretty much anyone she wanted to. So what she's really talking about is an emotional rescue, that he's brought her heart back to life after it became cold and hard. One of the major themes of this album is how lonely this mega celebrity life can be when everyone has ulterior motives for being in your life. So this tower, I sat alone in my tower, I think it's both the pedestal of fame and the isolation she needs to live in order to protect herself. But does it also, no matter the context and no matter the intention, feel a little off-brand and a little icky in the context of 2025? Yes. You can read this as, I'm just a poor billionaire lonely in my castle, or you can read it as, I was so melancholy from past heartbreaks and I thought that it would never end, but it did end because I met you and you were finally the right person for me. Of course, there's other interpretations too. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be yes and. Okay, that was a super long diversion. Let's keep going. So while our princess is alone in her handcrafted kingdom, you were just honing your powers. So he's not only a white knight, he's also a magician or a wizard or superhero of some sort. He has what she's alluding to, a kind of magic power of presence. In the context of Pyro, however, this could just mean he was honing his powers in the bedroom to seduce her. Now I can see it all, she says. She's finally glimpsing what's possible in life and in love. And this recalls a line from Daylight, and I can still see it all in my mind. All of you, all of me intertwined. I once believed love would be black and white, but it's golden. I think her new color of love, which started as red and then morphed into golden, I think her new color of love metaphor is fire. That's my theory, but we'll get into that later on again. Zooming out and taking in the view, now I can see it all. She sees what the agony had been for. It was leading her here. Late one night, you dug me out of my grave and saved my heart from the fate of Ophelia. So here's our central metaphor, said for the first time. He's brought her back to life from metaphorical death. But the grave metaphor can't help but remind us of the last time that she mentioned one, which was in So Long London, 2 graves, 1 gun. But what's the next line of that song? You'll find someone. What's most important to note about this is that she doesn't say, you saved me from the fate of Ophelia. It's, you saved my heart from the fate of Ophelia. So in the play, Ophelia's heart is broken by Hamlet and by others in her life taking advantage of her. I think what she's saying is that this magician, if he hadn't come into her life or entered her life, her heart would have stayed cold, not knowing who she could trust. He's brought back her faith in love, and this emotional rescue is really the metaphor that the song centers on. She continues, keep it 100 on the land, the sea, the sky. This is, I have since learned, a popular Kelsey catchphrase. So to keep it 100 means to stay authentic and genuine. And she encourages both of them to do that in this new romance. No matter where they are, stay true to themselves. Is it kind of a weird modern phrase to use in a song that also references Hamlet? Yeah. But if you want to dig into it, you could say that she's juxtaposing old and new, death and rebirth, which is another central theme in this album and of many of her albums. But it's keep it 100 on the land, the sea, the sky. When added to pyro, that gives us all of the elements: earth, air, fire, water. But it also reminds us of the famous one if by land, two if by sea from Longfellow's famous poem, Paul Revere's Ride. This evokes this kind of Americana vibe that is going to continue in the next line. Pledge allegiance to your hands, your team, your vibes. This also conjures this sort of all-American verbiage with the Pledge of Allegiance. She promises loyalty to everything about him, from his body to his team, which is either his football team or his metaphorical team, his family, his inner circle. And she pledges loyalty to his positive vibes. His vibes are the optimistic antidote that our Ophelia needed to counteract her melancholy. Don't care where the hell you've been, because now you're mine, she says. She's disregarding who he may have been dating before or why it took him so long to find her or for them to find each other. It's about to be the sleepless night you've been dreaming of. She's trading in the sleepless nights of Midnights and the Torture Poets Department for a steamier and happier midnight pastime. The rest of the album is full of similar sexual innuendo, and it's the most blatantly steamy Taylor's ever been. But it's also the most blatantly optimistic Taylor's ever been. Does one have anything to do with the other? Who knows? The Fate of Ophelia repeats at the end of the chorus, which emphasizes, as all repetition does, what she wants us to pay attention to. She's rewriting the ending for this tragic character. She's also rewriting the ending for herself. Verse 2, the eldest daughter of a nobleman. Ophelia lived in fantasy. In the text of Hamlet, we don't get to find out if Ophelia is older or younger than her brother Laertes, but eldest daughter just means the oldest girl. And we do kind of get the sense that she is the oldest girl in this family. Eldest Daughter, of course, name checks track 5 on the album, and that track explores the responsibility that is instilled in us eldest daughters. But I think what she's getting at here is that she has it all. She's the eldest daughter of a nobleman, but she lives in fantasy. She's privileged like Ophelia and is, in her own way, the eldest daughter of a nobleman. While she might have a fantasy life from the outside, she lives in fantasy on the inside. This, of course, reminds us of I hate it here. So I will go to secret gardens in my mind. People need a key to get to. The only one is mine. Materially, she has it all. But emotionally and romantically, she lives in a fantasy world, basically to soothe herself. The key to that world, too, will come back around in the bridge. But love was a cold bed full of scorpions, she continues. The venom stole her sanity. This likely alludes to the fable of the scorpion and the frog, where the scorpion gaslights the frog into giving him what he wants and then stings and kills him anyway. That's what her past loves have felt like. The venom of these past heartbreaks is what's driven her mad, just like Ophelia. The venom is probably the gaslighting, being broken like a promise. But venom also alludes to the snake imagery and metaphors of the Reputation album and era. And in that context, venom is the poison of public opinion when it turns against you. She'll further explore this in many songs on this album. But she continues, and if you'd never come for me, I might have lingered in purgatory. Colloquially, purgatory is a temporary state of suffering. But tying into the old world literature references, purgatory is also a big part of Dante's Divine Comedy. That's an entire side quest we could get into. But here's the gist. Dante posits that all sin stems from love. So through that lens, she's in purgatory because of love, and plucked out of purgatory by love. You wrap around me like a chain, a crown, a vine, pulling me into the fire. She's giving us this list of similes that describe how he's enveloped her. But each one of these is purposeful, and they each pull her into the metaphorical fire. The chain immediately recalls call it what you want. I want to wear his initial on a chain around my neck, not because he owns me, but because he really knows me. The chain here, just like the necklace, feels more like he's hoisting her up and supporting her and not trying to chain her down or tie her down. The crown reminds us of all of her previous monarchy and fairy tale metaphors, king of my heart, the alchemy. Circling back to Hamlet, Ophelia never gets a crown. Hamlet never becomes king, so she never becomes queen. But here, they get to ditch the clowns, get the crown. The crown is a crowning achievement or crowning glory. So we have the chain, the crown, and now the vine. The vine reminds us of ivy. My house of stone, your ivy grows, and now I'm covered in you. He called her on the megaphone and slowly invaded her heart and her soul. He's grown on her. And now he envelops all of her and pulls her out of this purgatory. Then there's the fire that the crown and the chain and the vine pull her into, which of course references the pyro metaphor from the first verse. So what is the fire? I think here is where we need to look at the whole of the Taylor Swift universe, because she mentions fire a lot. In the past, there's been sparks flying in excitement and chemistry. There's been the fire of metaphorical death and rebirth, always rising from the ashes. From sprinkler splashes to fireplace ashes. There's been fire that burns everything to the ground. Like in Dear John, I took your matches before fire could catch me. They're burning all the witches, even if you aren't one. If I'm on fire, you'll be made of ashes too. But none of these quite fit with the fire that she's describing here. And if we look at the fire heart emoji that was used in the marketing of this album, that to me means that fire is part of the color-coded universe that she's created, where each album has its own color. This album, we could say it's orange, but they're using the fire heart emoji. They're not using the orange heart emoji. In my view, fire is the updated version of red. First, Loving Him was red, where red meant passion and excitement and intensity. Then red morphed into the darker and more depressing shade of maroon. So Scarlet was maroon. That means it's regret. It's a stain on her soul. Here, the new version of red is fire. It's bright, it's intense, it's spicy, it's hot. And he's the pyro who lights up her life without burning it to the ground. Hopefully. The chorus and the post-chorus repeat word for word. All that time I sat alone in my tower and keep it 100. This is a common structure for Taylor on this album, but not so much in her previous modern albums. It makes sense as she's leaning more pop on this album, and it is a very traditional pop structure to have so much repetition. But repetition, just like in poetry, in lyrics, repetition plays a role too. It points us to what she's emphasizing. Then we reach the bridge. 'Tis locked inside my memory, and only you possess the key. This is a deeply loaded line with references to both her previous work and to Hamlet itself. In the text of Hamlet, this line is found in Act 1, Scene 3, in which Ophelia's brother is warning her not to trust Hamlet and his promises of love. As they say goodbye, he makes her swear to remember his words of caution. Laertes says, "Farewell, Ophelia, and remember well what I have said to you. Ophelia replies, "'Tis in my memory locked, and you yourself shall keep the key of it." So Ophelia's brother is saying, "Remember what I told you?" And Ophelia replies, "Of course I will remember. It is a secret only between us." So Taylor's modernized the phrasing, but kept the "tis." So instead of "'tis in my memory locked," it's "'tis locked inside my memory." This could mean a similar sentiment as in Hamlet, like this is a secret or a code only between us and only we know what goes on inside our partnership. But it could also mean something quite different. And that's because there is another key in the Taylor Swift universe. In I Hate It Here, she says, "I hate it here, so I will go to secret gardens in my mind. People need a key to get to. The only one is mine." In that song, the key represents a locked, secret fantasy world, like Ophelia lived in fantasy, where she finds her happiness amidst the chaos of everyday life. It's a place only for her. So what's locked inside her memory could be the sacred nature of what they have. Only he has the key to her heart because he's been the only one to fully unlock her. Her secret garden is now not only hers, but it's theirs together. And then she gives us another clue. "No longer drowning and deceived, all because you came for me." This makes it feel that what's locked inside her memory is that moment where her fates diverged. She could have drowned in purgatory, or she could have been lifted up and tossed into the fire of real love. And that is exactly Ophelia's fate, to drown in deception and to drown from deception. The key feels like to me, it's the moment that he swooped in at the rescue. He wasn't just any rescuer passing by. He was the key to her lock, the exact right fit. And in so many ways, this rescuer who has the only key to her lock is the polar opposite of Hamlet. He's going to keep it 100, unlike lovers past who would only gaslight and ghost. Hamlet's vibes, too, are just crazy town. And this new person's vibes are fire. "Locked inside my memory, and only you possess the key," repeats again. So it reinforces that there's this secret place or secret thought that only the two of them share. "Remember how special this is," she's saying to herself, "because you have known the opposite and you nearly drowned in melancholy because of it." "No longer drowning and deceived, all because you came for me." She repeats this again at the end of the bridge. Suddenly, when she least expected it, everything has changed. The song in this album is really dealing with this two roads diverged in a yellow wood of it all. What could have been, what is now, and how past and present converge to put you in the exact right place at the exact right time. It's not just about fate, it's wondering what wasn't fated and why and how it wasn't fated. But then there's also this duality within herself that she's grappling with that's not as obvious on this track, but will become really apparent in the songs to come. "All that time I sat alone in my tower." She repeats this in the final chorus, and that repeats all word for word. And with the repetition, it begins to remind us of another similar line from Exile. "All this time, we always walked a very thin line. You didn't even hear me out. You never gave a warning sign." That incredible track, Exile from Folklore, is a conversation between two ex-lovers who are in a stalemate, and they will never understand one another. All that time with other people who would only eventually leave her to the fate of Ophelia, this magical love was right around the corner. But as she says in Invisible String, "Time, curious time, gave me no compasses, gave me no signs." They say you'll find love when you stop looking for it. Or maybe once you actually listen to your brother Laertes and realize that you can't trust everyone in love, you'll finally learn the lesson that will lead you out of the water and into the fire. The rest of the chorus repeats, with only the outro varying from the rest. You saved my heart from the fate of Ophelia. Repetition is, of course, used to bring attention to central themes and messages, and here it's heart that's the most noticeable. Physically, would she have succumbed to the fate of Ophelia? No. But would her heart have metaphorically died of madness and melancholy after letdown, promises broken, castles crumbled, and jokers dressing up as kings? Maybe. But that's all in the past, because no matter what happens with this new love, she finally believes in it again. She can see it all, what's possible, what's right for her, and what a real partner feels like. On the cover of this album, she's head barely above water in a bathtub in full showgirl garb. But she won't drown there. And though the trappings of the showgirl life are heavy, just like Ophelia's gown, she now knows that she doesn't have to succumb to the melancholy. That's it for track 1, The Fate of Ophelia. And if you found this insightful or entertaining, or just want to keep geeking out about Taylor Swift with me, please click all the buttons and do all the things. I am just starting this channel, and it really, really helps. Anything you can do. Stay tuned for my next episode, where we are going to dive into track 2, Elizabeth Taylor. Do you think it's forever? See you next time. That's it for this chapter of Swiftly Sung Stories. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please don't forget to follow, subscribe, or leave a review. It helps other Swifties find their way here. I'm Jen, and I had a marvelous time reading everything with you. See you next time.